Hello and welcome to some lesbian book recommendations by Real Life Lesbian. I have 7 books to share with you today. They are from multiple genres, ranging from contemporary to fantasy to historical romance, and they are both adult and young adult novels. So I think you will find your favorite lesbian novel here, because what they all have in common is that they feature a lesbian main character with a lesbian romantic relationship in the novel. So without further ado, let's begin with it. And also I want to mention, look at my clothes. I have put on my best lesbian clothes for this wonderful occasion. I have a beanie, I have a flannel, and I've even matched, look, I matched my nails to the flannel. Isn't that lovely? Anyways, now we begin for real. The first book on this list is Second Nature by Jay. It is a fantasy novel set in our modern world with addition of shapeshifters. However, they aren't your regular shapeshifters that turn into wolves. They can also turn into tigers and lions, etc. And one of our 2 main characters is such a shapeshifter, and she is also part of sort of a police force that hunts down and silences humans that find out about their existence, because they want to keep their existence unknown to the humans, because they're afraid otherwise humans will experiment on them and all that nasty shit. And this shapeshifter's latest mission is to hunt down this authoress that writes lesbian romances, because her latest novel seems to feature shapeshifters that bears an uncanny resemblance to the real ones. Like, everything about their culture is spot on. So she's sent to her to find out how much she knows, how she knows all of this stuff, and if necessary she might even have to kill her. But then of course our second main character is the lesbian romance writer, and the shapeshifter and the writer, they start falling in love with each other, and they have such good chemistry. And I especially love the writer's point of view, because she notices all of these small details about the shapeshifter. I think that's a really good deception of how a writer's mind works. And I also like that the writer had writer's block and how she struggled with her novels. I could really relate to that, since I love to write books too. I just thought this book was such a fresh book. I haven't read anything like it, and I also appreciated that in the shapeshifting community it was perfectly normal to be homosexual, and I always love to read about worlds where it's just normal and not a big thing to be homosexual. But let's move on to the next book that is set in a time that it isn't accepted to be homosexual. This book is called The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics, and it is a historical romance novel set in the 17th or 18th, I will put it on the screen, century. Once again we follow 2 main characters, and one of them is the daughter of an astronomer, and she has always helped him with the mathematics of his science, but of course without getting any credit because she's a woman. But when her father passes away, she decides to take up his work and continue with a translation project he was just about to begin with. But in order to release such a book, she needs money, she needs a sponsor. So she travels to this rich fine lady named Catherine in order to get some money. But she also gets feeling for Catherine, and they are reciprocated. And I rarely read about 2 people in a relationship that are so good for one another. Like, they were really supportive of one another. Catherine really are there for Lucy, the scientist, when she tries to navigate this world of science, who is built up by men who does not want her there. and in return, Lucy encourages Catherine to pursue her passion for embroidery, which was something that her former husband never did. He always put himself first and Catherine second. And I also generally just loved that their interests were such a huge part of the novel. I love to read about that, and probably especially because I myself am passionate about both handicraft, mathematics and translation. Last but not least, I also found it very heartwarming that these two women got such joy out of their same-sex attraction in a time where homosexuality was forbidden and frowned upon. Because when I imagine myself being born in such a time, I just imagine myself being miserable, and that my homosexuality would just have brought me suffering. But to read about these two women who got such joy and positive experiences from their same-sex relationship, it meant surprisingly much for me, actually. Moving on to number 3 on this list, The Summer of JD Perez, in parentheses, the best burger in Los Angeles. This is a YA contemporary novel following this girl, Addie, who is a self-described quirky, fun best friend who never gets her own love story because she has pink hair, she is plus size, she always wears these bright, fun patterned dresses, and of course she's a lesbian, but once again she has never had a girlfriend. But that is about to change with Summer of JD Perez. She meets Jodie at this summer internship that they both have at a plus-size clothing store that Addie adores. However, only one of them will be able to get a part-time job there in the fall, so it's a bit of rivalry mixed with first love, and the story also handles a lot about friendship, and Addie's relationship with her mom is also a huge part. Her mom blogs about healthy food, but Addie feels like she's, a disappointment to her mom because she isn't skinny, and that's really heartbreaking to read. But otherwise, this is just a fun, heartwarming, colourful, liveful story that is perfect to read in the summer. The next book on this list is The City of Silk and Steel. It is an adult fantasy novel sort of set in our world. It isn't clearly stated, however, I would place it in the Middle East about 1,000 years ago because it's in the deserts, they have a traditional view on women, and there's no technology there. And this book is very special because it's basically about the rise and fall of the city of women in the desert, and you get to follow these multiple set of characters and how their action and motivations leads to the rise of the city and women, and also inevitably its fall. And it's such a heart-wrenching story that sticks with you, but weirdly enough it also brings you this sense of peace with the world. It is written beautifully, and it is told through the eyes of a psychic woman who both gets visions from the future and the past, and whose tears are ink. How cool isn't that? And this woman also has a romantic relationship with another woman in the book. But that is actually everything I want to tell about this book. You need to read to find out more. Moving on to book 5 on this list. This is Patsy. And just thinking about this book breaks my heart. It is an adult contemporary novel about this Jamaican woman called Patsy who gets accidentally pregnant at a young age and gives birth to this daughter that she doesn't really want in her life. She don't want to be a mother, and it's heartbreaking to read because she leaves her 5-year-old daughter True in order to move to America to find her childhood best friend who she also had a romantic relationship with. So she basically leaves her daughter in order to find happiness and love in America. However, everything there isn't what she dreamed it would be. It isn't as it's portrayed on TV. And you also get to follow the 5-year-old girl who is left behind, True, and her growing up and having her own issues. And these heartbreaking lives is told with such a luscious and vivid language. And the conversations in Jamaica are in patois, which are really appreciated. So they are written as they speak, like how they speak their version of English. So you can really hear these people talk in your head, and it just adds this extra dimension to the story. The next book on this list is It's Not Like It's a Secret. It's a YA novel, contemporary, and it follows this closeted lesbian Japanese girl who moves to a new city in America where she falls in love with this really cute and cool Mexican girl in school. And I think this book portrays being in love and just pining over a girl so well. But what I also appreciate about this was how the parents played a huge part in this novel too, and that they had their own issues and problems. But I think the main thing I appreciate about this book was how it handled racism between two ethnicities in America, Japanese and Mexican, because the main character's mother is really prejudiced towards the Mexicans. She thinks they are just lazy and so on. And I thought this was so important to bring up because we often read about how white people are racist towards everybody else who isn't white, but there's actually, unfortunately, a lot of racism between different races too. And I think it was brought up in a very good way in this book. Also because the author is Japanese herself, so I think she really knew what she was talking about. Now we have come to the last book on this list, and it's actually written by the same author that wrote the first book I mentioned, so we're really going full circle here. This book is called Perfect Rhythm. It's written by Jay, but in contrast to the first book, Second Nature, I mentioned, this is not a fantasy novel. This is a contemporary romance set in a small town following two women, Holly and Leo. Leo is this huge pop star sensation who basically ran away from this small town when she was young because of issues with her father. But now she's temporarily moving back because her father is on his deathbed. He has just had a stroke, and this is her last chance to patch things up. Then we have Holly. She has also grown up in a small town, and she is Leo's father's nurse. So that is how these two women meet, and they are pretty different at a surface level, but they have two things in common. They are both lesbians who don't think that they will ever find love. Oh, tragic, I know. But Leo thinks that because everyone basically wants her because of her fame, not because of herself. And Holly because she is asexual. She really wants a romantic relationship. She likes to kiss and cuddle and find, you know, deep connections with people on a soul level. However, she isn't interested in the sex part, and because of that, she thinks that no girl would ever want to date her. But despite their insecurities, they fall in love, and you have to read to see what happens. I simply adore this book. It also has a follow-up called Not the Marrying Kind, which is set in the same small town, but it follows two other women who are side characters in this first book. Not the American Kind is really good too, but I think I prefer Patrick Rhythm just a tiny bit more. Anyways, that was everything for today. I sincerely hope that you thought some of these books were interesting and that when you read them you will enjoy them as much as I did. And please write in the comments down below if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. And also, I'm really eager to hear your lesbian book recommendations. I'm always on the lookout for more. And until you see me next time, take care of yourself, the people around you, and the earth. Bye!